Oh.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Neek, the podcast. I am the glorious, oh my god, I almost said geek-glorious. I don't even know what that is. The glorious geek. I'm not even glorious. I'm just the geek samurai today, Kiku. Along with me, as always, is the demon sour cream, the lovely, the no longer lady-locked Joshua Finney. Josh, how are you?
That was a tiny-ass plane I flew back from Pensacola on. That's all I have to say.
Yes,
it was a tiny plane, not sufficient enough for my legs.
Did you hurt yourself this time? Because you hurt yourself on the way here.
No, I did not hurt myself, but I had all my Funko Pop that I bought because I didn't trust the overhead compartment, plus my Demon Sour Cream poster that I was greeted with at the airport and my map of Middle-earth, like all sitting on my lap in what I'm sure was not FAA approved. And I was okay with it because the lady next to me was clearly disturbed by the amount of Funko Pop I had.
Good. That's
all four of them. All four of them.
She should never watch our show and see my room.
She should never see any of our rooms.
No, she'd probably have a mild stroke or cardiac infarction. But Josh, we actually have special guests with us today, don't we?
We have guests. I don't know if they're special.
Well, Lindsay's short bus special.
Ouch.
That's what her mommy said.
I'm kidding. We love our
we love her.
We have today.
Lindsay Darnell, who is with us, is actually our social media guru. We're finally getting her on the show. Yay, lady! We have a lady on the show. We have a second lady on the show, my good friend, who actually made good friends with Josh at Pensacon, another podcaster, and we love him to death, from Team Terrible, Be Terrible Productions, the weekly pop movie podcast, Jeremy G. Branch. Jeremy, what's going on, man?
Happy to be here.
Good.
Happy to be doing this. Happy to be surrounded by all of these awesome toys, and I even got my own
we brought
X-Force version of bobblehead Deadpool. Really excited to be collaborating with you guys. Big fan of the show. Big fan of you all as people. And I wish I had a social media person. Look at you guys moving on up.
She's not a person. She's a guru. When she does the social media stuff, legitimately, she is in an adult diaper with a turban on. And she goes, tweet that out. Oh, God.
The full hashtag is
I'm
hashtag
repping
get me
Be
back.
Terrible today, too, with my bag.
Yeah, actually, I put the pin on my bag, too. So everywhere I go, you will see Be Terrible Productions, and people will ask me what it is, and I'm like, it's literally Terrible Productions, and you should love it.
That's exactly right.
With
We set the bar very low.
Oh, good.
They're
my last name's Brand.
B-grade Terrible Productions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of came about ironically, but then again, I was like, if I kind of set the bar there, people can never give me shit for like false advertisement.
True.
Or that my content's not up to snuff. It's like it says right there. It's terrible.
Well, that's why we go Neek the podcast.
Not safe for work.
That's right. Now everybody knows. Don't listen to this shit without headphones. But of course, today's a special episode. It is our Deadpool review. We've all seen Deadpool. Everybody's seen Deadpool. There's so much Deadpool going around the internet right now. But of course, as most of us have read comics since birth, and one of us is actually a movie guru himself. You watch movies in an adult diaper and a turban, and you go, movie.
I actually swap them up too. I wear the adult diaper on my head and wrap the turban around my abdomen.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's a good look.
That escalated quickly, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that would be our show, the flaming garbage truck that has never found the rails once. So Deadpool, Josh, me and you actually got to experience Deadpool in a very unique way, and we're going to get into that later in the show for people who may have never tried it out or, are curious about what it is. But, let's start with Lindsay. You are the lady in the room. Lindsay, what did you think about Deadpool?
I loved it. I mean, it was everything I wanted it to be, but it exceeded those expectations.
How did it exceed those expectations?
I mean, I honestly expected it to be just a cookie cutter movie because of how fast it was pushed out and the budget it was under, and it was not any of that. You could tell it was a creation of love. Yeah,
$58 million was all it took to make that movie, which is definitely a lot less than most superhero fare nowadays. Mm-hmm. In fact, what was it? Avengers was 250 mil, Josh?
About 200.
About 200. So, I mean, that's, almost 4 times less of a budget. And I know I personally enjoyed it more than Age of Ultron.
Definitely.
So, Josh, what did you think about the movie?
I mean, I went in with pretty low expectations because the initial test footage that got leaked got me so hyped. I thought there was no way it was going to live up to that. And then at the same time, it was like, all the trailers we kept seeing were basically the now iconic highway chase, just recut over and over and over again. But that helped preserve a lot of the secrecy. Like, I had no idea what I was going to get out of this. I was like, well, this is either going to be amazing or it's going to be a garbage truck on wheels like our show. And it exceeded a lot of my expectations. I'm hesitant to call it like the greatest thing ever, like the initial gut reaction was.
Sure.
And that was the gut reaction I had after Age of Ultron. Like, oh, it's better than the original Avengers. Now in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, what was I on?
Love. You were on.
I enjoyed it a lot. Ryan Reynolds. This movie does not work without Ryan Reynolds. I'll just say that right off the bat.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'll get in. I'm sure we'll get into that deeper because Ryan Reynolds is the movie.
He's Bay. He's Bay of the movie.
Pretty much, he is the Daisy Ridley of this movie for me.
Yes.
And then I've always loved Colossus, so getting Colossus in this was just a total extra for me. A lot of my fears.
Colossus. Let's point that out. It's actual Colossus, not Colossus for 15 seconds, and then we never see him again. And then the next time we see him, he's like 15 years older, and we're like, what happened? What's going on?
Right. Definitely a lot of my fears have been documented on the show time and time again. In fact, since the very first episode, I think one of our first 2 or 3 episodes is when we recorded the Gina Carano, TJ Miller, and Ed Skrein castings. And I was just like, this sounds terrible. Why are you going to cast these people in this movie? This is a horrible, terrible idea. And I could not have been more thrilled.
So, Jeremy, we'll go to you next. I know you personally are not as big of a comic book nerd as the 3 of us. Lindsay, probably almost nerdier than Josh on comic books. He didn't get to see her collection when he was here.
No.
But
I did not.
For someone who's not a comic book fan, what did you think of the movie?
Well, for a little bit of context, as much of an avid reader as I am not, I do have X-Force issue 2. I got it in its original print, and I thought that was the first appearance of Deadpool. Until way later on. Right. And the marketing for this movie, just to kind of expand on what you guys were both saying, it was like the bar was set so high with this like viral marketing campaign and this way that they were using and utilizing all sorts of new media to like build this hype around this movie.
They're still building it too. That's the coolest part.
Absolutely. And, it does seem like maybe it was pushed through in the later phases, but this has been a film that's been in gestation for close to a decade, maybe like more, 11 years.
Like 11 or 12 years, actually.
And so you do know it's a labor of love for Ryan Reynolds. I kind of compare it to Guardians of the Galaxy, and the fact that the script and the story itself wasn't necessarily the thing that hooked me. It's the characters, it's the interaction between them, it's the dialogue and the irreverent sense of humor that I really liked. And I did find it a little formulaic. I'm one of the few people that have said that, but I do feel like just kind of jumbling up the order of events really helps set it apart from its brethren, And it's funny, when you talked about Colossus a minute ago, Fox's mantra is like, we don't give a fuck about continuity.
Yeah.
Every single movie, they just totally rewrite the timeline. And fans have proven to be pretty much cool with that. We're on board,
Which Deadpool pointed out in the movie. McAvoy or Stewart, this continuity is really hard to follow.
Yeah. So, overall, I was extremely happy with it. That hype train had me a little bit apprehensive. And then going in and watching it, I was 100% on board. So everybody's gushing about this film, right? Like all over the internet, and that's where we live our lives, is the interwebs. So let's get it out there. What didn't work? What was some negatives from the film? And that way people don't think we're just fanboying and fangirling over this character. Josh.
My biggest, I wrote up a review within about 48 hours of seeing it. My biggest complaint, even upon seeing it again, is the weak villains, which is something the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been plagued with, that the X-Men movies outside of Magneto have been plagued with. Just Ajax and Angel Dust are very formulaic, like Jeremy was saying. That's where I saw the formulaicness come out of the movie. We didn't really get any explanation for their motives. Not that we necessarily needed that, but like a couple throwaway lines would be nice. If you didn't pay attention to the very first scene with them in it, you're not really going to know why they're doing what they're doing. Longtime readers will know that what Ajax is doing is a form of the Weapon X program. But it didn't. The villains did not work for me. They worked for me in this context, in a sense, because this is a movie very much all about Ryan Reynolds. Like, it's not about anybody else. Everybody else could have been garbage, and the movie still would have been great. And I think that's really one of my only knocks against it, is how they did not flesh them out. And I would have liked to have seen, I think, more of a tease towards the X-Force, which I've been very clear for pretty much the last year that I think this was the first step in doing an X-Force movie, and that X-Men Apocalypse is the next step in that, going in a much more adult direction with these films. That's about it, though. I mean, there's not a whole lot to complain, but it is enough that had it gone on any longer than an hour and a half, I probably would have started complaining a lot more about this movie.
Yeah. Jeremy G. Branch.
Well, I think that's totally fair. And just a little disclaimer, we are in such an all or nothing kind of society right now that if you say one negative thing about the movie, then people are going to accuse you of hating it. It's happened to me on multiple occasions.
Right.
But I, as a film critic, I have to try to be objective. And even in the greatest movies, there are things that do not work. And if you're not willing to acknowledge those things, then it's hard to really appreciate what makes them great. The weak villains, I kind of compare Deadpool to Batman Begins in that way. Batman was the star of Batman Begins. It wasn't until The Dark Knight that Batman got outshined by the villain. But in the original... I'm sorry, go ahead.
The villains, I mean, just a quick side note, I think both villains were phenomenal in The Dark Knight, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, and I agree, but in a way, I feel like to establish a good origin story, you got to really put the focus on the central character. I don't like seeing and it's very typical of Marvel, to show the other side of the coin. While Joe is getting his superhero powers, Bob is getting his supervillain powers by some other freak coincidence accident. And I don't really that formula is it's kind of tired by now. So I didn't mind them starting off with these kind of like Ajax. He's just an asshole, right? I mean, I didn't understand his motivations.
I think we should start calling him by his Christian name, Francis.
This is true. Yeah, Francis. And, but yeah, so as far as negativity, I do feel like a lot of the movie took place on that bridge that we see in the trailer.
Yeah.
And there are the narrative structure of it is such that it breaks away to go back to the origin stuff, but it keeps coming back to that bridge. The set pieces are impressive. I did enjoy that. I just feel like if I was gonna go about changing one thing about the movie, it would have probably just been to add one extra set piece, which they probably had in the original draft of the script, which would have put the budget to like $80 million. And so therefore they cut it out. And we got what we needed out of the movie, but those are just a couple of the little concerns that I had with it.
So do you think that though, those drawbacks for you are more budget or story driven? Like, do you think that, the script was like, oh no, this is all that we're going to do? Or do you really believe that there was more and they were just like, we have $58 million, which in, modern movie budgets is like us going and getting a Slurpee from the 7-Eleven. It's like $2.15.
I do believe that it was a budget constraints issue. I believe that I have to feel like in today's day and age, an hour and a half, a 90-minute runtime feels about a quarter short of what a typical spectacle, big budget summer tentpole movie is.
Right. These are usually a minimum of 2 hours, if not more.
Yeah. Right.
So, Lindsay, what were some of your negatives? And I already know one of them, not enough naked Ryan Reynolds, because that's one of mine. No, that's one of mine. Like, when they showed his scarred booty, I was like, oh boy, hey.
Did you see the dick dangle when the building was exploding?
What was
it?
When the buildings exploded. I mean, my eyes went there, so.
Oh, okay. Hey, fair.
It was the most noticeable dong in a movie since Dr. Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah, it just kind of hung there, and you were like, oh, there's.
So at that point, do we call him Dr. Deadpool?
I wanted to know, like, is that Ryan Reynolds' real dick? Is that CGI? Is that like a dick standing?
Well, here's the thing. Jeremy and I and Josh, obviously, and you are now a part of the semi-popular, semi-obscure podcasting community of the United States of America. We can get a tweet campaign, real or fake, Hopefully Kim Kardashian doesn't pick up on it because she'll
Aw.
answer. Everything is real. No, bitch, it's fake. But what were some of the actual negatives of the movie for you? Or if you had
Honestly,
any?
and it's going to be playing on the dick thing. The dick jokes, I think, at a certain point in the movie, I became numb to them. It's like a joke that was played out way too much. Like,
Gotcha.
like at the little hand part, I was still laughing, but towards the end of the movie, like I was just like, okay,
Too much.
I get it.
Too much dick.
You really like sex.
Yeah.
You're human.
Gotcha.
Can I expand on one more thing that might be a negative? This is kind of like to the superhero genre what Cabin in the Woods or Scream was to the horror genre.
Sure.
And that deconstruction of it, it kind of shows the cracks or the seams of the genre. Do you think that going forward that it's going to negatively affect the way that people view the more straightforward superhero movies?
Well, I mean, you know, we just covered the fact that Warner Brothers executives think that everybody, most casual fans and Marvel fans, are going to not be smart enough to really understand what's going on in Batman versus Superman. I mean, I understand what it's like to get into spandex and go fight crime or commit it.
What an offensive fucking thing to say.
Look, dude. I understand that you get offended when you see my package in spandex, but it's
No.
you know, it's there for a reason. All right, I'm here to procreate. Damn it. No, we covered it, and you know, obviously some of the headlines made it a lot more clickbaity on that, and whatnot. I guess, you know, we should get into my negative. Really, the only negative that I had that was really jarring for me was Colossus's arms, the CGI on it, because it literally looked like two pigs. And I said this on your show, it looked like two pigs swinging from his shoulders, like they weren't long enough. But it was just funny. Whenever he'd cross his arms, they were perfect. But when they would hang down by his sides, I was just like, why do you have midget arms? Like you're like 7 feet tall, and those arms are like,
I don't know what to
16
do with
inches
my
at max.
hands.
I don't know what to do. Yeah, exactly. But I don't think that it's going to ruin that formula, right? Like it's not going to ruin any other movies because Deadpool is its own thing. And we've said it, I know I said it on your show, Jeremy, and I said it on our show as well, that, you know, Deadpool, because of who he is, like literally you could put him in the Star Wars universe and no one's going to bat an eye, right? Because it's like, oh, that's just Deadpool. He does shit like that all the time. What I do think is going to be a problem is, and it's kind of being blown up on the internet right now, and there's the two sides of no, it isn't, yes, it is. But a lot more people are going to think that the rated R rating is what makes Deadpool such a great movie. Which it definitely
are mouth breathers.
Well, I wouldn't call them mouth breathers.
I would.
Well, the executives are. You know, the ones that are like, oh, rated R movie worked. Now everything needs to be rated R. I just hope that, and James Gunn said it too in an interview, he was like, I hope that Hollywood doesn't take the wrong impression, you know, from why Deadpool worked. And it's not just because of the rated R rating. It's something that I personally feel that I said on your show, and I know I talked to Josh about it, is that Deadpool is that small superhero movie, right? Which it's more personal, it's more intimate for me. It's something that I wanted to see them do with, like, you know, Superman or Batman. It's something that they kind of do with Captain America, but his movies always wind up with him trying to save the world. It was nice to have this movie where the focus was, you know, on the relationship, right? And the end result was just him trying to save his woman. It had literally nothing to do with saving the world. In fact, he didn't even show mercy at the end, which is typical Deadpool, of course. But the fact that you get this intimate relationship and you feel like you know the character, and he does have these like base human instincts, right? Like I'm a huge Superman fan. Everybody knows that. And I love the fact that Superman is always about hope, about saving the day, saving the world and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you know, if I thought about it, yeah, I'd probably snap Zod's neck. I don't want Superman to do it because he should be better than me. But watching a character like Deadpool, who's very much more human, you know, shoot some guy in the head, and make Colossus throw up from it, you know, that's you. I think, you know, you kind of relate more to that. And that's, you know, something I know me and Josh wish would have happened in Ant-Man when we thought that was going to happen, didn't we, Josh? Was that we were going to get this much more personalized story, more intimate and whatnot, and instead we still got
Ant-Man's I feel is kind of a different case because it falls into the fallacy of being part of the MCU. It was the most personal story out of what we've seen in those because it was largely a family affair.
That just sounds dirty. Let's never say that again.
It still, you know, it still impacted the universe as a whole, though. mainly because of that Falcon scene, which was amazing, but still. Yeah. This was the kind of story I've always wanted told. They largely ignored the X-Men films, which was really nice. They made fun of it repeatedly, though. I feel like they really kind of played off the motif of nothing has been a small-scale movie. It's always all or nothing in every one of these superhero films.
Yeah.
And, they keep trying to recruit him to the X-Men. He keeps saying, no, like, he's only out to do one thing. Like, he just wants to fix his face. And then the last act of the movie transitions into him needing to save Vanessa. And that works because of the character. I don't think that works in every hero movie.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to what Deadpool himself says. He's not a hero. He's very much an anti-hero, always has been. He's the reluctant hero in a lot of ways, even when he's on the X-Force. So to see him do this was really, really cool because they stayed true to the character without compromising. I think that was the biggest fear of anybody.
Sure.
Does he have more redeemable qualities in the film than he does? I mean, he's more of a bad guy in the comics, right?
Well, because the comics have been going on for 20-something years now.
The comics, it really depends on the writer.
It does.
Okay. And Deadpool says that in a comic. It depends on the writer how I am.
Yep. There was an arc, and I can't remember when it was. I want to say it was in the early 2000s, maybe mid 2000s. I know it was before 2010, where Deadpool decided he wanted to be a hero. And he wanted to join the Avengers. He wanted to join all these teams. And by that point, they all knew who he was. And they're like, no, definitely
we can't have anything to do with you.
Yeah, but he would keep going and trying to save, people in the world. Actually, he was one of the reasons that the Secret Invasion didn't actually go through as planned. One of the main.
But he was the direct cause of Dark Reign.
Yes, he was the direct cause of Dark Reign. But even during the hero things, like he's still trying to be the hero, but doing everything the Deadpool way.
Right.
Right.
And he's still like that now. He's an uncanny Avenger now, and he's still doing that.
He's still doing that.
So like Frank Castle or the Punisher to the uninitiated in that way, maybe. He just has different code that he lives by, but he still has the same goals as the rest of the superheroes.
Well, but I mean, when you look at it, it's going to be definitely that the Punisher's more feared, I think, of what he'll do, while Deadpool is more annoying. You know what I mean? Like, they have to tolerate him, or not. But, Frank Castle, nobody wants to really, fuck with, because it's the goddamn Punisher. It's Dolph Lundgren, not Thomas Jane.
It is John Bernthal.
It's John
Bernthal now, yeah.
He's a beast.
He will become Silver Surfer Punisher.
Yes, that needs to happen. Silver Surfer. We need someone to draw that art up for it. Lindsay, you're an artist.
Oh, what? When did this happen?
Oh, right now.
Surprise!
I have you a pencil. I'm using English today. All right.
New Jersey English.
So, yeah, it was English. It was good. But going on to that with the rated R thing, we talked about it on episode 45. Pentagon got Neeked, but we talked about how Wolverine is now going to be rated R for it. Which is a great thing. Jeremy, we were schooling before the show and about Old Man Logan, the original Old Man Logan. Do we really feel, though, that there are going to be more rated R movies on the superhero genre now because of this?
In the defense of, you'll never catch me do this again, in the defense of Warner Brothers and DC, Zack Snyder released an R-rated cut of The Watchmen many years ago when the theatrical release was PG-13. So we could say that they're following suit, but it also could be said that he would have done the same thing originally anyways.
Well, that's like a Zack Snyder staple.
Right.
As well as super slow-mo and everything in blue, tinted in blue. So, I mean, that's just, par for course. But, moving forward, do we really feel that there are going to be more movies that are kind of borderline? They could get away with either PG-13 R, or are they going to push them into R?
I think they're still going to be hesitant. I think that even though Deadpool show that there is going to be this large fan base that can produce a productive opening week and get them the money they want, they still want to target it to children, and they still want to make it something that you can take the family to see.
Sure.
I think that's the beauty of the differentiation between the X-Men and the X-Force is now they do have this separate wheelhouse where it's still a connected universe. There's still that connective tissue. There's still that X that everybody loves so much, but now they can take the franchise and split it off into two different directions. And maybe And I think that's kind of even true to the comic run, that the X-Force are a little bit more like the any means necessary group of mercenaries.
Probably the last 10, 15 years, Josh, they became way more brutal.
Yeah, put it this way. They had an arc in like 2006, 2007 called Sex and Violence. So,
yeah.
So inevitably the Cable thing's going to come up. Y'all want to segue into that later?
Well, you're talking about it now. You can't whisper segue.
We can edit this out.
I'm the one that edits. I don't want to have to do more work because you made a mistake. Damn.
You are God here, by the way. I am so uncomfortable going on other people's podcasts because he, as the editor, he knows. Like, he's going to be the one that comes off sounding the smartest. And Josh, do you do editing sometimes too?
Nope.
Okay, so yeah, then inevitably all of you guys might potentially sound not as articulate, but Chris will always come out smelling like roses. At least on my own show, it's the same way. Like, if I say something dumb, I'll get rid of it.
You really haven't listened to a lot of our episodes, have you? No. You need to go back and listen to why #BurgleHams is a fucking thing, and how I messed up what the Electronics Entertainment Expo was and called it the Extracurricular Entertainment Expo, and that was like a thing for 2 weeks. And now that I've reminded Josh about it, he's going to text Ray, and Ray is going to be like, "So, how about that E3 though?" And I'm like, "I hate you so much right now." But Cable, yeah, I mean, Ryan Reynolds after it, and this was something Josh brought up, and Jeremy, you brought up as well, that they're still pushing Deadpool so much. And Ryan Reynolds has gone and done like a ton of interviews, a lot of funny ones. Like he interviewed Hugh Jackman, which was absolutely amazing. If you haven't seen it, Jeremy, if you haven't seen it, or if anyone listening hasn't seen it, please go find that interview. It's hilarious. He makes fun of X-Men Wolverine Origins, and he even gets Hugh Jackman to be Crocodile Dundee for a whole second, which is, absolutely amazing. But, they already said that they want to get Cable in there. And of course, full spoilers for this episode, obviously, because we don't give a shit.
We already have.
Yeah. He said that he wanted Keira Knightley for Cable as a joke, and someone did a mock-up of it. And funny enough, she does look kind of legit as Cable. I'm not going to lie. Like, I was like, I could work with that.
She has a blanket enough stare.
She does. And her acting is Cable-ish. Anyway, the two names that came up, and one of them I think people thought was a joke, but actually looking at him works, is Kevin Nash, the pro wrestler. Really does look like Cable. And then the other one is Stephen Lang from Avatar.
Please, Stephen Lang. If there is a deity listening, Stephen Lang, please.
Knowing us, it'll be Ganesh, and he's busy.
I would like to throw another name into the pot, and I won't normally. I'm not always this guy, but Bryan Cranston.
Get out of my fucking house!
Come on, Bryan Cranston.
No. Okay, Kiku is bitter about Bryan Cranston because he beat Matthew
stole
McConaughey.
He stole it
from Trumbo, or is that what we're talking about?
No, he stole
Breaking Bad. The final season of Breaking Bad was better than the first season of True Detective, and he's upset about it.
I see.
Fucking not.
You know how they do. It's like the Lifetime Achievement Award. It wasn't about the last season of Breaking Bad. It was about the entire show.
He's upset because Cranston won 3 in a row before that.
They ate Cranston's booty like groceries.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Everybody does, and I'm not always that bandwagon guy.
Ozymandias.
Who's that?
All 8 episodes, Josh. He kept it. All 8 episodes. McConaughey
Cranston kept it all 8 episodes too. I don't want to hear it.
No. This is. I've had enough. There's no more of this. I don't even remember what the fuck we were talking about. Stephen Lang.
Stephen Lang is Cable, please.
Bryan Cranston. He doesn't have enough physicality.
So, okay.
He was eaten by Godzilla.
Was in Avatar. What else has he done?
He's been in a lot of stuff.
That dude is ripped.
Yeah, he is definitely ripped.
He posted it was the day after Deadpool came out. He posted a picture of him in the gym flexing. His muscle is bigger than my face.
So he's lobbying for the part right now.
Oh, dude, he's straight up said he's like, I want to be Cable.
Yeah,
I give it to the man.
He cut his facial hair into the goatee and into the flat top already.
Yeah,
like yes,
that's
they want to fast track this, like they're saying. Get this man on the phone.
And of course, this is definitely a better campaign than Ronda Rousey as anything and Tyrese Gibson as the Green Lantern. Although me and Josh we want Tyrese Gibson to be the Green Lantern, so that way we get 2 sequels Too Fast, Two Lantern, and then of course our favorite, Green Lantern 3: Adrift. Lindsay loves that. I wish Ray was
awful.
here. No, it sounds amazing. They, you know, the
Jeremy doesn't live his life a quarter mile at a time.
That's right. Jeremy's pockets are empty because they are empty right now. But you know, they're going to push all these movies out, which is amazing. One of the things that I know that Josh and myself talked about that we were a little concerned with is if they do try to do that crossover movie, right, of the X-Force and the X-Men, because obviously you can't have Deadpool in an X-Men movie at this point unless Josh had a really good idea where they started, you know, doing the beep sensors and he's the only one that notices he's being censored. And everybody else is like, no, we hear you fine, which would be amazing, but you couldn't do it for a whole movie, right?
No, it would be like a 3 to 5 minute cameo. And at this point, Fox is not stupid enough to be like, we're not going to put Deadpool in anything. They're going to be like, we want this guy in everything. We want Ryan Reynolds in absolutely everything. Because, and I said this earlier, I want to kind of backtrack the Deadpool really fast, the Deadpool characterization. Very few characters in popular culture are closely aligned with their actor. Like, oh yeah, that might have been a great performance, but he can be replaced. There's some now that you cannot separate that actor from that role. You know, Harrison Ford and Han Solo, Johnny Depp and Captain Jack Sparrow, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool has entered that echelon.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Like without a doubt. I read the Deadpool comic earlier, actually, the 25th anniversary issue, and I was reading in Ryan Reynolds' voice all the dialogue, and it made it magical. That being said,
Josh's voices.
Fox surely knows how big of a draw he's going to be. He's not going to be cheap to get anymore. The Deadpool sequel is going to have a triple-digit budget easily. They've already said it's going to have an exponentially bigger one. So at that point, it becomes about taking care of the character. Anything that he's in probably needs to be written by Rhett Reese at this point.
And Paul Wernick, their team.
And Paul Wernick. I can never remember his name, so God forgive me, but those guys need to write his dialogue for anything he's in. That was a huge part of the reason for the charm, as well as Ryan Reynolds' performance.
Do you know who Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, what movie they did before that?
No.
Zombieland.
Zombieland.
Oh, I should have. Yeah, and I actually heard a little interview about them talking about greenlighting the sequel to Zombieland. It's still kind of in the works, maybe.
Well, thankfully, that horrible Amazon Prime show did not get made of Zombieland because that pilot was awful.
It's just you have to take care with this character. It's not someone you can just throw into anything. I don't want it to be Wolverine syndrome. Right. I don't want the X-Men universe to become Deadpool and Friends now. But they have said they can see. Fox executives were saying last year when they at Comic-Con that they saw Deadpool and Gambit going forward as the two characters that could replace Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. I fully agree with Deadpool on the adult front. He will front the X-Force. He'll front all their R-rated movies. That's cool with me. I love that. But you got to keep making that distinction. This is not for children.
Yeah.
This in no way, shape, or form is for children. I know a lot of people who've gone to go see this. They didn't look at the rating. They're just like, oh, we know Deadpool's a Marvel character. We know he's one of the X-Men. And these movies have been so family-friendly for so long. Not that it's a bad thing. I love that. But because most of the comics are family-friendly, but if you're not in the know, you don't know. Marvel did, Marvel Knights, Marvel Max, a lot of these parental advisory comics.
Yep.
And Deadpool and The Punisher are two huge staples of that. That's why, I told people, I was like, if you're under 17, you should not be watching Jessica Jones. You should not be watching Daredevil. You just shouldn't be. It's not for you.
Well, it's like when I live tweeted Jessica Jones, the first thing that I think I put out, or it was the second or third tweet, was like, this show is adult as adult can be.
Yeah, like 2-3 minutes into it, it's automatically like the most adult thing Marvel themselves had ever done. Yep. And it's important to make the distinction right now that this is Fox and not Marvel. Marvel's films will continue to be PG-13.
Yes.
But I think
why they have Netflix, right?
Right. And that's where, Marvel hasn't made in the sun right there. Anything violent or, R-rated that they want to do, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Punisher, inevitably Moon Knight's going to come, can all be done on Netflix without any sort of restriction. They can put whatever they want into that show. DC and Fox don't have that luxury. They have to take, Fox especially had to take some sort of chance. Had they not done Deadpool, I think it'd be safe to assume they might be losing the rights to their Marvel characters soon. Because the X-Men movies are, they make money, but they're not super popular. They've never gone above 300 or 400 mil worldwide, even as good as Days of Future Past was.
Yeah, I thought Days of Future Past hit 700 mil.
They've already said that Deadpool in 10 days has outgrossed any X-Men movie.
Okay, deservedly so.
Very deservedly so. But it's important to make that distinction because so many people are like, oh, Marvel did so great with this. No, it was not Marvel. It's very clear from the beginning. This was not a Marvel film. This was a film that even Fox didn't really want to greenlight, that they finally were like, fine, we'll let Tim Miller, Ryan Reynolds, Rhett Reese, and Paul Wernick go off and do this if it'll shut them up.
Yeah,
and get the fans to stop bugging us.
And I think that's a really good point to put out there for everyone listening, to any fans and whatnot. Do not give 20th Century Fox the credit for this fucking movie.
No. It's four men are responsible for this.
Four people are responsible for this. Number one is Ryan Reynolds. And if you guys don't know the story, since 2004, when he was in Blade Trinity as Hannibal King, he was approached to play Deadpool. And no one wanted to greenlight it. He fell in love with the character reading the comics, and he's been fighting since 2004 to get this movie made. A bunch of directors, a bunch of writers, yada, yada, yada. Until
Robert Rodriguez at one point.
Robert Rodriguez wanted to make it. Guillermo del Toro even said he wanted to do it right after Blade Trinity. But, of course, it's Guillermo del Toro.
He wants to do everything.
Yeah, he
still thinks he's making it 10 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to do the reboot. And then you have Tim Miller, who came on and said, no, we're doing this. He really partnered up with Ryan Reynolds in the end.
First-time director, too, by the way.
Yes.
Want to point that out. Never done a movie before. Never even done a short film.
But he was so passionate about, I think, Ryan Reynolds' passion to do this character. And then they got probably the best writers to do this in at least the movie world, which was Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. Again, as we said before, Zombieland. Those four guys are responsible for this movie. So if anyone anyone who goes, oh, 20th Century Fox hit it big out of the park with Deadpool. The only thing they did was relent. And if you listen to some of the Ryan Reynolds interviews, not only did they say some inappropriate things to the executives to get this movie made, but ultimately it was the fans, after the footage, quote unquote, leaked. The fans threatening, the executives to have this movie made.
To this day, Ryan Reynolds will not say how it got leaked, but he has repeatedly alluded to the fact that he did it.
Yeah, him or someone he definitely knows or told to do it, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, right now he's laughing all the way to the bank. Highest grossing R-rated film of all time. Ever, yeah, of all time. And then obviously if this R-rated film is doing more money than your main, universe properties, he's just sitting there, anytime Fox would tell me, if they make the sequel, they make X-Force, and if the studio tries to intervene, I'd be like, no, that's not happening.
I mean, it goes back to what we talked about on the main Neek show on episode 45, that these guys took a risk like the other studios are unwilling to. I mean, Marvel is in a situation where they don't have to take a risk, really. They take risks in storytelling, in my opinion, and in universe building. They're continually pushing it forward, and DC is, still playing catch-up. DC's kind of caught in the middle now between the two, because they're like, oh my god, an R-rated movie worked. Like, Suicide Squad would have worked if we did it rated R, probably.
Yeah.
And instead, it's going to be a watered-down PG-13 movie that's probably going to get an R-rated cut on Blu-ray, because it's...
they're going to get spawned. That's what's going to happen.
David Ayer is directing it. Yeah. He loves gritty war movies.
And social media.
Yeah, and that's what the Deadpool effect is what's going to frighten me. Deadpool's far and away not the first rated R superhero movie. It's the first one that was commercially successful. Because Watchmen got rave reviews when it came out. Watchmen, to this day, is probably the most faithful adaptation I've ever seen of a story. Panel for panel was recreated in that movie.
Well, that's something that I actually talked with Jeremy about, because he wanted to bring up rated R movies on our episode. And Lindsay, as a comic book fan, you'll know this. A lot of the rated R comic book movies that have come out are not actually comic book movies. They're based off of graphic novels, which in and of itself is already adult content, right, Lindsay? Yeah. So, I mean, you've got movies like, Kick-Ass. It's a graphic novel, right? Mm-hmm. You've got Watchmen, which graphic novel.
Yeah.
Series of graphic Kingsman. Thank you, Josh. Again, Mark Millar. We love Mark Millar. again, graphic novel. Really, the first R-rated comic book movie to have worked and been somewhat commercially successful. It made money, but nothing remotely close like this was Blade. And everybody seems to forget that Blade is really
all three Blades.
All three Blades, though we try to forget the third one. Blade, when it came out, a lot of people didn't even know, even though the Marvel crawl was there at the beginning, nobody really knew it was a comic book property. So really, all of these movies really do owe Blade something. But I think that distinction needs to be made, because I'm tired of seeing these fucking memes like, oh, Deadpool's not the first rated R comic book movie. No, you're right. You're right about that. It's the second, but everything else already had adult content to base it off of, right? Like it wasn't streamlined down like Blade was, where it was like a little bit of blood, but they took it and ran with it for a rated R rating. Lindsay, how do you like Blade?
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
I have all three on Blu-ray.
Oh, wow.
You want to watch it with me?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that. All right.
It made no money, and I saw it like 4 times in its first week of being in the theaters. I can't believe it. I figure I was like 20% of the sales.
Right. Well, I mean, it had to make enough money to spawn 2 sequels, correct?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And especially the
Wesley Snipes was one of the hottest things in Hollywood at that time.
After that, well, that also enhanced his career too. It made him a cult icon.
Until he went to prison.
Yeah.
Well, he made all that money and then evaded taxes. That sometimes happens.
Keep it classy. Yeah.
But I mean, going back to that effect, I don't think it's any stretch of the imagination to say the effect that Deadpool has had on Ryan Reynolds' career, it's rejuvenated it.
Oh, for sure. It's a Robert Downey Jr. moment.
Right. It really is.
Yeah.
Minus the rehab and jail stints. Ryan Reynolds had a string of commercially terrible films and critically panned films.
Well, he was in that Sandra Bullock movie. That's technically like prison.
That was like 6 years ago, though.
And one of the better
6-year prison stint. Yeah,
that was one of the better ones. I mean, he was in such classics as R.I.P.D.
Oh, wow.
Hey.
I actually liked
that. It wasn't that bad.
Oh, my God.
I mean, it was like a shitty Men in Black, right?
Yeah.
Y'all are a mess. Y'all are a mess.
Look at us. Look at us as people. We are a mess.
I know you are, but still.
I want to play devil's advocate about this studio thing real quick. Okay. I love the fact that Neek is championing the writers. I think that so many people don't even know the names of these people.
Oh, we do.
But I do want to commend Fox, because this was a risk that they took after the commercial and critical flop that was the Fantastic Four. This could have compounded
this coming up eventually.
After Fan-4-Stick.
Bigger clusterfuck, right?
Well, I mean, if you look at it though, look at how much money they invested in the Fan-4-Stick, as opposed to, I can't believe you have me fucking saying that. I really can't. Fucking demon sour cream. He makes you say shit. But look at how much money that they infused into Fantastic Four, right? And how much money they infused into Deadpool. That's like chump change, right? I mean, $58 million. How much, Josh? How much was Fan-4-Stick?
120, I think.
It was triple digits.
Yeah, it was triple digits, right? And of course, you have Ryan Reynolds, who's passionate about the project.
Deadpool made more on Friday's release than
the entire
Fan-4-Stick did in the entire run.
Deservedly so.
Definitely deservedly so. Papa John making a pizza while Peyton Manning dances next to him naked as a movie should make more money than Fantastic Four.
I'd pay to see it.
Everything's floppy. Anyway, even the dough. But what do you call it? Really, a $58 million risk, I think, for studio executives, not that big of a deal, right? And of course, Deadpool made them their money back, not undeservingly so.
No, I mean, it's set to rule the box office for a third straight week this coming weekend.
Yep.
And now they're even doing a fake Academy Awards campaign for it. It's so great how much everybody who's seen this film is now rallying behind it, and now the studio is like, well, I guess we gotta kind of support this.
Yeah.
Not that they weren't. I mean, definitely the month or two leading up to the film, you could tell Fox was like, okay, with some of the really cheeky advertisements that were coming out, like promoting it as a romantic comedy and things
which
like
was fantastic. And they even say in the movie, if your boyfriend brought you to this and you believe it's a romantic comedy, I'm sorry.
Right. And it's just like, things like that, I will give the studio's marketing team credit for all day long. That was just genius. You marketed the movie exactly how you needed to.
Mm-hmm.
Give those people a raise. The social media campaign around this movie is one of the best for a film not made by Bad Robot.
Yep.
Right. No joke, dude. Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of the best for a film not called Cloverfield. Let's put it that way.
No doubt.
It's just, it blows my mind that this even got made. Especially when the initial test footage came out, we saw it, and we heard that that other test footage made fun of the studio executives, and that's how the movie got greenlighted.
Yeah.
It does tell me that, in a sense, maybe Fox's executives were like, well, if this movie doesn't go good, maybe it'll just kind of quietly disappear. Maybe we won't have another Wolverine origins tale on our hands.
What is that?
But I don't know. But when I saw that action figure in the movie, I had horrendous flashbacks to the 10th grade.
And there was laughter. There was a lot of laughter.
Yeah. People around me did not understand why I found that so funny, and it occurred to me that there were people younger than me in that theater, and that they have probably never seen that movie.
Well, good for them. Thank their eyes for never having seen that shit.
Yeah, but I mean, kind of getting back to the whole topic of it. I mean, this is really, we're not really reviewing the movie in a sense. I think we're all still amazed this is a reality.
Yeah.
We've wanted a proper interpretation of Deadpool for so long, and if you asked me even 2 years ago, what are the top 10 characters you'll never see on screen, Deadpool would have been in the top 5 easily.
Definitely.
Easily. Punisher would have been up there, done correctly, let me say it that way. And now we're getting both of those this year. We're getting Apocalypse this year. It's a wonderful time to be a fan. Batman versus Superman is coming.
That's right.
It is a great time to be a fan of these, either as a hardcore fan because you grew up reading comics, or as a casual fan who just goes and sees these because they're a whole lot of fun. I just gotta keep reiterating, this is an adults only film. If you take a child to this, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, no movie is worth exposing somebody to that sort of adult humor. Like,
no,
you know what I mean? Like,
even if you're 17, I'll say it. Like, you need to be able to handle some of that content.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna, for some people, it's gonna be like, Lindsay said, the dick jokes really just got to be too much. And Chelsea felt the same way. She felt the same way when we came out. But she's like, it was a fun movie, but she's like, the humor just really, really wore on me after a while, especially in the third act. I was like, okay, I can understand that. I'm more familiar with it because this is very much how Deadpool is. I expected it going into it, but definitely, like, you gotta kind of mentally prepare yourself for that. Like, yeah, it's gonna be a whole lot of crude humor. That's who Deadpool is. Like.
Right.
Do you think that giving Gambit the kind of budget that they're giving them is going to somehow put them in? Is that going to be to their detriment? Do you think that they would be more better off to just like strip it down, make it a smaller story? Because I know that its budget's in the triple digits, and I can't understand why he, who isn't a marquee character like Deadpool, would get that kind of treatment other than Channing Tatum is a big star.
Because you have literally no one from the X-Men after Wolverine that can really hold a solo film without having, to involve like other Marvel characters, right? Like Storm could hold her own solo film.
Yeah.
But at some point in time.
But nobody wants that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, nobody. I do. I would want to see Storm in a solo film.
Well, you are the only two humans I've ever met who want that.
Well, but the thing is I would like to see the evolution of the story of when she marries Black Panther and they form their own little king and queen duo and just go tear shit up. Right?
LOL, not happening.
Yeah, not happening, obviously, right? I know Lindsay, one of your favorite characters is Storm, right?
It is.
Wouldn't you like to see a solo Storm movie?
I would, yeah. I'd love it. I mean, I'm excited that we get a Captain Marvel eventually. So.
Yeah. But when you're looking at like that entire X-Men lineup, you could try to do Cyclops, right? But they mistreated him so badly that people are just going to be like, I don't care about that. Gambit hasn't been in any of the films. They're going to, try to do this thing where they can get away with whatever they want with him. And that's what I kind of feel like. Personally, I don't feel that Channing Tatum is the right choice. We talked about that, Jeremy. I know me and Josh have. And it's not that I don't think he's a good actor. I just don't think he's right for that role.
I think I'd make a freaking fantastic Gambit. I'd have to, put on about, 90, 100 pounds, but...
Josh, did I ever tell you a story about how Jeremy used to be in the Harry Potter universe and he used to look into that mirror about all the shit he would want but it could never get?
Oh my god, y'all are horrible.
There's actually a famous cosplayer that it's not like super famous. Don't know his last name, but his first name's Michael, and he dresses up as Gambit regularly. And before they cast Channing Tatum, there was a big social media movement to get him to be Gambit, and they didn't.
Of course,
even think about considering. But he is what I envision Gambit to be, and what a lot of people do.
Well, I think with makeup, Channing Tatum can look the part. I don't know, like.
The thing with Gambit is that accent is such a key part of Gambit.
But he's Creole. Yeah, Channing Tatum is Creole.
Right. It's his. I like Channing Tatum. I'm a huge Channing Tatum defender on the show. I like him in a lot of things now. In fact, he's actually starting to become a bit of a draw for me in films after Foxcatcher, Hateful Eight, things like that.
Yeah, agreed.
But it's just I've been saying this since he was cast. It doesn't feel right.
He's not scuzzy enough. He's too pretty.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's what you said. I think that's right on. And I always pictured him as being more lean, and Channing Tatum looks like a meathead.
No, he's actually very lean. He's lean muscular, right? Like he's not like buff.
I still feel Channing Tatum looks too buff to be Gambit.
Really?
Like Gambit to me has like a thinner waistline. Like while Channing Tatum is like thin, lean, buff, he still has a thicker hip line than what I envision Gambit to have, and that's a big part of it for me as a lady.
So who would you want to be Gambit? Do you have anybody in mind, Lindsay, to be Gambit?
I honestly, visually that cosplayer Michael, whose last name eludes me at this moment, and I hate that because I follow him on every social media platform.
Our social media guru, ladies and gentlemen, can't remember names. Fantastic. But I do want to back it up more to the review process, since Josh pointed out that we've kind of what do you call it? That we've never that we're never on the train tracks and whatnot. What do you call it? Do you feel that you like this movie a lot, Lindsay, because it was such a passion project?
I do. I felt like I connected with it more than any other superhero movie I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
You could see that the love was in the actors, and I mean, as much as we don't want to admit it was a romantic comedy, it was totally a romantic comedy.
No, I fully admit that.
And as a lady, I guess the feels are there, and so I was like, oh yeah, he gets the lady in the end.
So do you feel like let's do an analogy to this, right? Like let's say like the Avengers movies are like Walmart and Deadpool's more like a mom and pop place. Is that how you felt? Like,
yeah. Like I feel good going into it. Like
more familiar.
Yeah.
And it's a good analogy.
It's like a hometown movie.
Hometown, yeah, exactly, right.
And as a lady, it appealed to my nerdy comic book side that I was given crap for growing up for being into boy stuff, and then I can still be a lady and get the romantic side out of it and get both my girl and boy parts out. Well, that just didn't.
Get them both out.
That's
there.
Neek the
Get 'em all
podcast right there. So from a lady standpoint though, and this is something that I pointed out that I don't know if Josh really agreed with me or not, or any of the other guys, but I felt that out of all of the superhero movies that we've gotten so far, the relationship between Vanessa and Wade Wilson was probably the most predicated on realness. Like it felt like a real relationship.
It was organic, yeah.
Yeah, very organic.
It took that 5-minute bar conversation to totally sell you on like they're both damaged people. They both got kind of broken lives, but the two of them can like fill each other out. They can mend each other's damage.
Let's not say fill each other out after the whole International Ladies' Day incident.
Yeah.
That's just something we don't want to happen. Maybe we do.
It started for both of them as just, a bar hookup, and it went from there, and that seems organic, especially for someone like me.
Right. Well, I mean, and as somebody, I've had health problems recently, and, you've had health problems recently. But that scene where they're in the doctor's office, right? That scene hit me hard, right?
I definitely I cried when he was saying that, he was just memorizing
the lines of her face.
I was crying in my seat, and I'm sure Amber and Steven were just like, this bitch here fucking crying at Deadpool.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what? For it being Deadpool, like that's actually a really like you're just sitting there and like even myself, like I felt like if I was in his position, right, and this woman is just, how can we save him? What can we do? And she's going about it, in a realistic way, not freaking out, like, dead set serious. Like she's focused on trying to save my life. That would be something I would do is I would memorize the lines of her face, or drink her in. Right. So I mean, for you, did that enhance the movie overall?
I connected with this movie on an emotional level that I didn't expect to going into it. And I think that made it even better for me.
All right.
Can we talk about the actress's name? Is it Marina Baccarin?
Miranda Baccarin.
Miranda Baccarin. She is like next level beautiful. First of all, she's extremely talented.
The whole movie, like I knew it's not Kat Von D, but I just kept being like, "Are we sure it's not?"
She's not as scuzzy. No.
She was in Firefly.
Yes.
She's in Gotham.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I think every nerd's fantasy. She's just so beautiful, but she was great in this movie. And I do think that that's another thing that gets overlooked and kind of lost behind the humor of this movie is that the emotional beats, they freaking hit, you know, like it has a spectrum of emotions. Comedies, a lot of times they just have that one note. Their goal is to make you laugh. This movie had multiple goals, and it was able to fire on all the cylinders. And I think that is a huge success just in itself. Zombieland was similar in that way.
Yeah, it definitely had some emotional beats. None as heavy as Deadpool, definitely. But I mean, I think if you look back and, you know, me who tries to fashion himself as an amateur comedian, which is why I'm out of work like all other amateur comedians, you know, when you look at the best comedies of all time or what people really hold up, you know, as the best comedies of all time, they have some heaviness to them. They have a lot of weight to them, right? One of them specifically, like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with John Candy and Steve Martin. Lindsay, have you ever seen that one?
Yeah.
You know, the end part where he finds out that Dell's wife is actually dead, you know, and all of a sudden all that crazy shit that happened throughout the whole movie, and you're just like punched right in the gut, right? Which is typical John Hughes. You know what I mean? Like that's John Hughes was just like, I'm going to make you laugh and then I'm going to break your heart. But then you'll laugh by the end again, right? You know, Tommy Boy is another one.
That's the first one I thought.
Yeah, well, Tommy Boy is one of my favorite comedies of all time. It was my when I was 13 years old and sick. That was the movie I watched over and over again with Star Wars. You know, again, his father dies, and you know, but the movie's still funny, but it's that emotional beat to it, right? That really endears it to you, and I think that's something that I've not seen anybody talk about that about Deadpool. I think any conversations you had, has anybody said that? You know what I mean? Like it's just there are endearing parts to it that make you. That they trick you, right? Like
you get all up in them feels.
Yeah, well, and that's, you know, what Josh was saying about the social media campaign is that when they marketed it as a romantic comedy, you know, guys, you know, most, I think typical guys are going to go in and go, oh, it's a lot of, you know, dick and fart jokes, and, you know, he does all this crude stuff. And I think most women are going to latch onto the fact that underneath all of that stuff is this true and tried love story. And yet it's a little fucked up. Sure, it is. Like a real relationship should be, right? But at the same time, like that's, I think, what really latches you in, that Deadpool is this 3-dimensional 16 wall breaking, which is still my like favorite line from that movie. Fourth wall break inside a fourth wall. That's 16 walls, you know, that's really, you know, they trick you into that, you know, and you walk out of the movie going, the ending was the right ending for it. Right. You know, like that ending with him and Vanessa is the right ending. He didn't, you know, like I said at the beginning, and I said on your show, Jeremy, you know, was that it is a small personal story. No matter what happens around that, it is a story about Wade and Vanessa. And, you know, Josh said, you know, it was about him fixing his face, but it was really about him fixing his face so that Vanessa would love him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because he didn't feel he was good enough after his face was
and part of that is also that he left her, right? You know, and he wants to come back 100%, you know, to say he was sorry and whatnot. You know, there's a lot of metaphors in that movie too. And, you know, like the fact that she accepts him no matter what he looks like, what he does, because he is a bad guy, you know. He even says in the beginning of the movie, I'm a bad guy who gets paid to beat up other bad guys. You know, and I think that's why I wanted to get back to that, is because I want people to go back and watch that movie and really focus on that, because there is more to it than just him being Deadpool.
Yeah.
But let's move on from that one. To me, Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds is the most authentic comic book character they have ever done. I feel that, like, beat for beat, he was Deadpool. Like, there's, just like Josh said, it's like Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. You won't see anybody else. And do you guys feel that way? Do you feel that from the comics, you know, to the screen, that they really didn't touch anything?
I would have to agree. I mean, I am a huge Deadpool is always on my pull list, no matter what variation. Hawkeye versus Deadpool, even Mrs. Deadpool, and
All the Deadpools.
All the Deadpools. Yeah, so I mean, I'm a big Deadpool fan, and one of my fears was it was going to be this washed out or manipulated version of Deadpool on the screen, and it was not. It is what I wanted to see from a Deadpool comic.
Yeah, for sure. Jeremy?
Yeah, off the cuff, I'm trying to sit here and jog my mind to make sure I don't exclude any of them. I do think that they did a stellar job with Batman and Batman Begins. I think that was a fantastic origin story.
Yep.
But I think the most true adaptation from source material that I can think of is Deadpool.
Is Deadpool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And me, I've been reading Deadpool since almost day one, behind my mother's back, because I was young and I probably shouldn't have been reading those comics. But she thought, obviously, it's a comic, he'll be fine, right? Comic book characters are nice people, and he was not. But I'm mentioning Jeremy's show for a reason. Watch Weekly Pop Podcast, and we're going to shout that out at the end too, of course. But when I guested on your show, and I said that, I've been reading it for 20-something years. And again, it doesn't matter if you've been reading them for a year and you found out Ryan Reynolds was going to be Deadpool, or, if you've been a long-time reader like I have. But that is Deadpool. Like, there's very little that they could have done to the actual character without having to change the actual story of it to make it any more Deadpool. And it's been something I told you, that I've been championing since I found out in like 2005 that Ryan Reynolds had been offered that role. And famously, I tell the story of how everyone was like, oh, Ryan Reynolds, Van Wilder, he sucks. He'll ruin Deadpool. And I was like, no, man, like, he is going to be Deadpool. And in my mind, Ryan Reynolds pulled it off flawlessly. Like, he is Deadpool. Like, he should go down in history as being known as Deadpool.
Mm-hmm. And even after Star Wars, The Force Awakens, there was this huge backlash about what people didn't like about it.
Mm.
You haven't heard a lot of that about Deadpool. It seems like kind of unanimously people were fulfilled. I mean, I think the only frustration were parents that didn't know, like y'all addressed, that they were getting into.
I've seen a few people, feel that the humor detracted from the story, but I can see that, right? Like, I really can, as you guys said that, towards the end of it, the dick jokes got kind of bland and whatnot, or what do you call it? Flaccid. No, flaccid. I think flaccid is a better term for dick jokes. But, these are also people that are probably not as familiar with Deadpool as we are, right? And as we were just saying, Josh, that, at the core of it, it is a love story. It is a romantic comedy. No matter what goes on around it, all the other stuff, the main driving force for Deadpool himself is that love story with him and Vanessa, which we were just talking about being very organic. Like, it felt very natural and, right, even though it was a fucked up relationship.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm still on the side where I really don't know how much I agree with that. And that's purely because there is such an extended period in the movie where Deadpool is like Wade is determined not to be with her, aka from the time he leaves her until he decides to go see her at the club because he knows that Francis is looking for him.
Yeah.
Aside from like one little like 90-second interlude where he's like creepy stalking her, we don't really see her. We don't really get her mentioned or anything. He's all about, curing himself and enacting his plan to kill Francis. And it's not, he even mentions at the top of the movie, he's had this plan formulated for over a year. So that's that, including the time spent in Weapon X. That's like a year and a half he's been away from her. I don't really know how much of that I see as a love story, really.
Well, see,
but I think it comes back to that.
Yeah, but all of those things he's doing for their relationship, he's trying to not die so he can be with her and be a superhero.
He's trying to not die, but then once he becomes disfigured and everything, he literally decides against the advice of what Weasel tells him. He's like, dude, you should go be with her anyways, even though you look butt ugly. He's like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that.
But that's a common thing, though. Okay.
I understand that's a common thing, but I'm saying that, and that keeps in line with what I suspect Wade Wilson, the character, would do that we know from the comics. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I liked it. I think it kind of made their relationship, to me at least, feel a little shoehorned in at times. I think you could have done a perfectly fine resolution to the story without her having to be the typical damsel in distress. He absolutely still would have gone after Francis. He was going after Francis without them having abducted Vanessa. There's still ways you could have done that without having to resort to the damsel in distress motif, which is what I feel Vanessa ultimately got reduced to. She was very much a Pepper Potts to an extent. She was whoever else you want to draw the comparison of, Jane Foster. She was a lot like them in that regard. Yes, the relationship was more believable, but she still ended up in that prototypical, oh, you have to save me now, and I don't know what to do in this situation, which none of us would know what to do. So that's my only critique on that. It's not wrong or right. It's kind of there in my opinion.
Yeah. Lindsay, what do you feel about that?
About the damsel in distress?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there always has to be someone in distress. There's always need somebody to be saving. And as somebody that is particularly fond of most of the female superheroes, they do save a lot of females a lot too. So it's
right.
I mean, there always somebody needs saving. And while we don't like when our main characters are reduced to that, somebody does need to drive that plot point along.
Do you feel though that with Josh's statements though, I mean, for me personally, Josh and I obviously I respectfully disagree with as much as we respectfully disagree here on this show. What do you call it? That that's her being captured is kind of like the forcing of him to be in front of her, right?
Yeah, I think he was still pretty hesitant to reach out to her until he was completely changed back to what he looked like before, because he believed he was going to be able to go back and forth.
Francis said that he could fix his face.
Right, and then once he could fix his face, then he could be a part of Vanessa's life again. But he, he didn't get that ending, and so they needed a way to.
I can see how Josh sees that as
really
shoehorned in, right? Like that part probably very shoehorned in. Although it does lead to the great line of, Francis telling him he couldn't fix his face. And he's like, how stupid are you to tell the man that's about to shoot you in the face that you can't help him?
It really only felt shoehorned in because because Vanessa felt like when she's first introduced, from that introduction, you feel like she has to be so much more than a damsel in distress. And I feel like that's ultimately what they reduced her to. It was like, oh crap, we got to figure out what to do with her at the end. Like we have Wade's story ready to be finished. We have Francis's story ready to be wrapped up. We know how we're going to tie the X-Men dose into it, but what do we do with her? She's just kind of still hanging out, and that's why I kind of feel like she was just there. So
you're bringing me across the line, Josh. I kind of can see where you're coming from, and it makes me think about. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the terminology 4-quadrant movies. Yeah, you've heard that before. Movies that appeal to all bases. They're Hollywood blockbusters, and in a way, they needed Vanessa as a way in for the female audience, and that's why I was kind of interested to hear your perspective on it. Is because
Jeremy using big words that we never use.
It's just so often. The damsel in distress is used as, like, I know me and Kiku, one of my personal favorite movies, maybe my favorite movie, maybe your favorite movie, The Crow.
Yep.
It's a revenge fantasy. It's based on the woman in the refrigerator trope, where if the girl didn't die on the beginning, then the hero could never go on the path for righteous justice. So then it's like the girl's only really there to drive the hero's journey. But these are male screenwriters, and I have to suspect, I mean, like Hunger Games was written by a woman, and the gender roles are reversed. So I think that a lot of this comes from writers writing about what they know in their own personal experience.
Well, The Crow, if you know the background story to that, it kind of transcends that. And I know that's a word you like to use, is transcend. I can use big words too. Is that James O'Barr, who wrote the graphic novel for The Crow, wrote it in response to his fiance being killed in a drunk driving accident. So it wasn't as much as the damsel in distress as his own fantasy of being able to get revenge for someone he loved being taken away from him. Which, obviously a lot of people went to go see that movie and didn't know that story. But, for someone like me who is a huge Crow fanatic, when I got to meet Ernie Hudson a few years ago,
Nice.
and everybody's getting Ghostbusters autographs. You know, I went and got the Crow autograph, right? You know, but you know, coming from just a film standpoint, you don't know that history, then yeah, you know, it kind of sounds like that you know, you need the female in distress, or you know, the female death to be the driving force of the character. So in a way, yeah, that's kind of a cliched trope, but that's actually part of Deadpool's story in the comics and whatnot. Is, you know, he wanted Vanessa, although I seem to remember Vanessa turned into Domino, right? Or she was a shapeshifter.
Vanessa was somebody else. She was not Domino.
Yeah, no, she was she Lady Death?
No.
Not in the comics, right? Like somebody was, I don't know, there's like a fan theory out there that she's Lady Death. Which
I still think they're going to make her Domino, but
Yeah.
that's my personal theory.
Yeah. Actually, I think Miranda Baccarin would look amazing as Domino.
Yep.
Although,
I mean, I said it from the minute she was cast, so.
although someone did bring up, one of our group members, John Vick, I believe it was, when I said Keira Knightley for Domino, he'd be like, that'd be perfect because she already played a bounty hunter, yeah, named Domino, which would be, you know, kind of funny and definitely fourth wall breaking.
Mm-hmm.
But we're actually kind of running out of time. We're a little over an hour, but you know, you guys saw it in 2D, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I saw 3D.
You
3D
did see
IMAX.
3D IMAX?
No, regular IMAX.
IMAX.
Words
Yeah,
are
there was no
hard.
3D this time.
There was
I
no
about to say,
3D
no
because
3D.
Star Wars had taken all of the
Well, they
3D
also
is what I
didn't.
heard.
They also didn't film it in 3D, right?
Okay.
Yeah, no, they didn't. But me and Josh got to see it a special way, which is called D-box seating. For those of you who don't know, D-box seating are chairs in the theater that move with the action. They rumble, they shake, they go up and down, side to side. I actually saw The Force Awakens in D-box seating, and when Poe Dameron's flying the X-wing at the end, you're moving with him, and it was phenomenal. So I decided that Josh needed to experience this because he'd never experienced it. So Josh, D-box seating, was it awesome? Did it suck?
It was awesome. It would have been better in a movie like Star Wars.
For sure. For sure.
Even Avengers would have been better.
Yeah.
Where did y'all do this at?
Gulf Shores.
Okay.
Next time there's one, we'll go. We'll
That
go
sounds awesome.
with Team Terrible Neek. Yes, you can come, Lindsay. All right.
Dude, Civil War in it.
Oh yeah,
Ooh.
that's a good idea. Or even Batman versus Superman, because Superman flies.
This is very true.
Cloverfield.
So, yeah, that might be cool too.
I'm
Although-
kidding.
All of them.
Cloverfield was made for $5 million. There's nothing special about it.
Yeah, right. But D-box seating, guys, if you haven't had a chance, if you're local to the area of us, Pensacola, Gulf Shores has D-box seating.
Well, they got them all over the place.
They do. I'm not sure where the other ones are, but look for D-box seating. It is a lot of fun.
Google is your friend.
Google is your friend. Look for D-box seating. Try it just once, right? You know, just to say that you did do it, because it was a lot of fun. It wasn't, you know, comparatively from The Force Awakens to Deadpool, definitely The Force Awakens in D-box seating was amazing. But Deadpool is still a lot of fun, you know, because the chairs did shake, and, you know, we got kind of a back rub. You know, we couldn't eat nachos correctly. It was a good time. But with that, I'm gonna wrap up the Deadpool review. Josh, you cool with that? Wrapping it up?
Yes, because I need to go.
Oh, well, excuse me, Mr. Busy Bees. Lindsay, you got any shout outs?
Michael Huffman, since I remember his last name now.
Oh, Michael Huffman, cosplayer who
Shout
does
out.
Gambit. Check him out. We're going to check him out too as well, you know, to see if that's true. And then maybe we'll start a campaign of Fire Tatum, hire Huffman.
Yes.
Okay. Jeremy G. Branch.
Couple things. Like they said, Google is your friend. Check out Nerd Cave Network.
Oh, definitely.
Great guys, good friends of ours.
Derek, Robbie, and Zach. We love them, don't we, Josh?
Yes.
They're good guys,
Even though
Chimichanga
Zach's
Talk.
determined to put Vin Diesel in everything.
which
Yeah.
we're okay with as well. Vin Diesel for Wonder Woman. It was a good idea.
The guys in Chimichanga Talk, that is Dr. Evilbeard and KS Fernandez, Deadpool Speaks. Also great guys. Also a good place to go to find out about Deadpool. He goes around and tours conventions with a little Deadpool puppet, takes pictures, and they're really great guys. Check out BeTerribleProductions.com to stay up to date with all of our skewed view on movie news, reviews, trivia, debates, and a ton of other shit you won't find anywhere else. And thanks for hanging out.
And actually, we'll be doing some Neek Be Terrible production stuff here in the future, right?
We'll be crossing over.
We're going to be crossing over. We're actually going to do a con in Hattiesburg. Is that where we're going? April?
Thank you. April 2nd and 3rd, Hattiesburg. It's called Southern Geek Fest. Make sure to check out the group on Facebook. There's some really lovely people putting it all together. It's going to be a a fun, smaller con-going experience. If you want to actually have a minute to speak with some of these talented guests and artists and vendors, you'll have an opportunity to do so. I do honestly believe that there's a place for all sizes of cons, and this one, it's a good affordable price. It's got some great guests in the world of anime and acting and things like that. So definitely check that out. And then October 8th through the 10th, Emerald Coast Gaming Convention is going to be going on. It's the second annual gaming convention that's going on over in the Okaloosa Island area. Be Terrible Productions is going to be putting together the moderating and the panels and stuff for that event. So keep your eyes out for that. Neek, the podcast, is definitely going to be highlighted and featured there as well.
Right.
So you guys just stay in touch.
Josh, shout outs?
No, I have no shout outs this week.
Oh, no, well, it's not really this week. Well, yeah, it is this week. Someday. I do actually have one shout out, a very personal shout out, actually to you, Josh Finney. I didn't shout out to Josh. I shouted out to Josh on episode 45 a little bit, but I want to make it now on this Deadpool review. Thank you for being here, man. I had a fucking blasty blast with you. Thank you so much for getting the interviews, some of the interviews up already. We've already gotten a lot of positive feedback about it. And we're going to be doing more stuff together, and I really enjoyed that. You were a great guy.
Definitely. I do have one shout out.
Okay.
I do. It's not to you, though, because I gave you yours on 45.
You did.
A really long one.
Yes, you did.
Dallas Comic-Con.
Yes.
If you're listening. Dallas Comic-Con. I've been talking with Ray over the last couple of hours, and we are in the process of obtaining media badges. We will be at Dallas Comic-Con June 3rd through the 5th.
And only one of you will have a Neek, the podcast t-shirt.
It means that I'm going to be begging on my hands and knees for an interview with Peter Capaldi.
Oh, please do. Please do. And remember, autograph for Kiku. I'm the one with the Doctor Who tattoo.
My girlfriend comes first.
I will send you money,
priorities.
Guy. It's not like
as a Whovian, she comes first.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll fight Chelsea to the death with a spork.
She'll win.
Oh, yes, she will. She's got
Continue.
magic fork skills. That was it. That was my only one. Josh, thank you very much. Guys, listening, we do have more interviews coming out, but Josh is a busy man. So whenever they come out, they will come out, but they're awesome. Especially be on the lookout. We keep saying this for the Tony Isabella interview because it was really good. Like, it was really good.
We have two really special ones. Tony Isabella and Maximilio Hernandez both give us phenomenal interviews.
They did.
Out there. Very, very cool guys.
What I saw of y'all's interviews were fantastic.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed watching all of them. Everybody did a really good job this year. The Pensacon staff was great to us. Shout out to Steve Wise.
Yeah, we did Steve and Kat last time.
Good.
And actually, if she listens, she might not, but Ashley Poindexter, she was the captain of the guest floor, and she made sure that we got to where we needed to go and nobody bothered us. She's also working on the movie with Jeremy London, the Monsters Anonymous. She's actually the makeup artist. She's phenomenal. Check her out as well. But guys, thank you. Lindsay, how'd you enjoy your first show?
I loved it.
All right, we're going to get you back on some more.
Fantastic.
Because we love your face. So, guys, check out Lindsay Darnell. She's our social media director. If you talk to Neek Podcast, any of that stuff on Tumblr, Instagram, Twitter, she is the person you're actually talking to, which is why it's a lot nicer sounding than when I answer you, because I'm a dick. Jeremy, thank you for coming on for the Deadpool review.
Pleasure, guys.
We're definitely, obviously, with not only that stuff, we're going to do more stuff together, and we're going to do something with the Nerd Cave Network as well. Josh, as always, I love your face. And I will see you on episode 46, right? Yeah, okay, buddy. All right. Okay. Anyway, guys, have a good week. Hope you enjoyed the Deadpool review and other stuff that we talked about. Hopefully you gained some knowledge from it, or you just think we're stupid. But as always, keep
it nerdy.
You dick.